The Willow Heights pool was bathed in the warm light of the morning sun. The deep blue water was almost as smooth as glass, with only a few ripples marking the presence of children playing in the middle of the pool. The shadows of the surrounding palm trees danced on the surface of the water, but in one spot everything seemed a little too still. As the temperature rose with the sun, the stones along the poolside grew hot, and the sharp, stinging scent of chlorine mixed with the air, leaving a slight burn in every breath. Taking a deep inhale, everything felt more intense. The water sparkled as the sunlight hit it, but something was missing here. The peace, the stillness on the surface, seemed to vanish, even if just for a moment. Evelyn Moore, lowering her sunglasses slightly, was observing the woman lounging at the poolside. The woman was seated in a very calm manner, tall, athletic, and dark-skinned. She wore a comfortable pair of shorts and a t-shirt, but there was something about her stillness that didn't quite fit. In a place where everyone was carefree and enjoying themselves, she was sitting alone by the pool, far from the surrounding fun. She didn't appear to be bothered, but there was an unease. Something felt off. Evelyn's eyes traced the woman's face and movements carefully. There was something, a sense that this woman didn't belong here. Not one of us, she thought. This was Willow Heights. Everyone here was familiar. There was no room for strangers. The rules were clear, or at least Evelyn had always thought so. What was this woman doing here? Evelyn tried to push the discomfort down but failed. The voices inside her head still drew her attention to the woman's presence. There was distance, and in that distance, there was danger. Everything felt too calm, but deep inside, something seemed disrupted. That woman didn't belong here. This pool was for us, for our people. As her mother had always said, "Watch out for those who don't belong, Evelyn. Always watch out." She had been raised with this, taught to keep her guard up. Outsiders, strangers, they were always a threat. As she always had, Evelyn started walking toward the woman, doing what she believed was right. Evelyn Moore's footsteps echoed against the stone by the pool, reflecting the sunlight. In her mind, this discomfort toward strangers had never been this strong. The first time she encountered this woman, it reminded her of her old lessons and her family's warnings. "Watch out for those who don't belong," her mother's words echoed in her ears once more. She had grown up with those words. Back then, the sharp and clear stance her mother took felt natural to her. People had to fit into their surroundings. This was a place for those who adhered to its rules. But as Evelyn unknowingly grew up, the people around her were always familiar. No stranger, no matter how harmless, had ever given her a sense of trust. They were strangers because somehow they didn't belong to our world. And now, here in Willow Heights, this woman's mere presence, perhaps the fact that someone who shouldn't be here, was unsettling Evelyn so much. The woman's calmness, only reflecting silent glances from the outside, echoed in Evelyn's mind. The feeling inside her grew stronger. Something is wrong, Evelyn thought, and this woman shouldn't be here. The woman adjusted her sunglasses and took a sip of water. Evelyn's unease intensified as she watched the woman's calm posture by the pool. Why did she feel this way? Was it just the prejudice she had been raised with, or was there more to it? Even the thought of this left Evelyn in doubt. Jasmine Carter sat on the poolside lounger, slowly lowering her sunglasses. "I'm reliving this again," she thought, the deep purple circles around her eyes a testament to sleepless nights. These looks again? Every time people approached, they always eyed her with suspicion. There was always a distance. That's why she never felt truly comfortable being here. This was Willow Heights. Everyone knew each other. Was Jasmine supposed to be here? This kind of isolated place doesn't suit me. She often withdrew to moments when she didn't feel safe. Still, somehow this had become normal. But now she could feel eyes on her. As she adjusted her sunglasses again, she glanced at Evelyn from the corner of her eye. This was not the place where she usually felt at home. The looks from behind her glasses, shaped by years of experience, found their place here. No one wants me here, Jasmine thought. But somehow, she was here. The weight on her chest, though, had been momentarily relieved. "I'm here and I belong here," she thought for a moment, feeling that everything was as it should be. Evelyn stepped closer to the woman. "Hello," she said. her voice a little sharper than usual. "This area is reserved for residents and their guests. And seeing you here," Evelyn's voice slowly grew louder. "Seeing someone like you here feels a bit strange." Jasmine tilted her head slightly but locked her eyes on Evelyn with calm patience. "Isn't it a bit strange seeing someone like you here?" she asked. Evelyn, with increasing irritation, said, "This is a proper place. We know the people who spend time here," she continued. "But you're someone I don't know." Jasmine unhurriedly rose from her lounger. She quickly but comfortably pulled a small metal badge from her pocket and showed it. The metal glinted in the sunlight. "Belridge Police Chief." Evelyn froze for a moment. "Chief? A police chief?" The harsh sunlight by the pool created tiny droplets on Jasmine's skin. As she took off her sunglasses, she noticed just how intense Evelyn's gaze was. In that moment, Jasmine read the doubt hidden in Evelyn's eyes, a sense of hostility and inner discomfort. These looks were the kind Jasmine had seen for years. Everyone always looked at her as if to say, "Know your place." But Jasmine had long since stopped being affected by such stares. However, today, Evelyn's gaze was different. It felt like a reflection of the society that had marginalized and belittled her for years. Jasmine took a deep breath, carefully placing her sunglasses into her pocket, and walked toward Evelyn with calm steps. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice unwavering, only a trace of curiosity in it. Evelyn, taken aback by the confidence in Jasmine's approach, hesitated for a moment. "You don't belong here," Evelyn said, her words tinged with a sense of desperation. "This is our neighborhood pool. People like you shouldn't be here." Jasmine slowly shook her head as she found herself standing in front of Evelyn, taking a moment to gather her thoughts. These looks, these words were the same old patterns society had imposed on her for years. But Evelyn's words struck a different chord. This time she wasn't facing an enemy. She was facing a woman who, instead of confronting her fear, was looking for an opportunity to harm her. Rather than responding angrily, Jasmine continued to look at Evelyn intently. "I understand that my presence here bothers you, but don't forget this. Everyone has a right to be in this pool," she said. There was no intention to raise her voice, but with the tone of her words, she was trying to convey something to Evelyn. Yet Evelyn felt even more threatened. Evelyn quickened her pace and walked up to Jasmine. "This is my place. I have to defend my space," she said, her voice quivering with anger. Evelyn's outburst caused something to stir in Jasmine. In that moment, Jasmine sensed Evelyn's fear and the source of it. This wasn't just about defending space. Evelyn was under the grip of a long-held prejudice, a deep mistrust. Jasmine didn't want to belittle Evelyn's fear or challenge her more than necessary. Instead, she noticed the deep breaths Evelyn was taking, the tension in her body, and how she was trying to maintain calm. In that instant, Evelyn's inner turmoil became apparent to Jasmine. Her eyes seemed to read Evelyn's heart. There was a question in her gaze, one that questioned the origins of Evelyn's biases. But Evelyn, at that moment, was more focused on defending herself than opening up. "This is not your space," Evelyn said, her words drenched in desperation. This wasn't just directed at Jasmine. It was the logic society had imposed on her. "This has always been ours. And this place can never be yours." Evelyn's firm words sparked a brief storm within Jasmine. Evelyn believed in a power hierarchy that had comforted her, but Jasmine saw the emotional isolation beneath it. To win this battle wasn't just about legal victory, it was about understanding Evelyn's internal conflict. Jasmine, taking a more deliberate step, looked into Evelyn's eyes and responded, "This place belongs to the community, Evelyn. No one can exclude anyone." Her reply made Evelyn feel more vulnerable. The feelings she had suppressed for years were starting to collapse. Evelyn paused, silent for a moment. Jasmine's gaze seemed to expose her internal decay and the prejudices she had carried. In that look, Evelyn realized that the things she had always believed to be true might no longer hold. This realization was deep enough to make her both defensive and, at the same time, open to a change. But Evelyn was beginning to recognize the weight of her anger and fears. Jasmine, standing firm, felt Evelyn's fears in a way that was unshakable. The calmness in Jasmine's stance made Evelyn ask herself, Why is she so calm, so confident? For a while there was silence. Evelyn thought, but the words wouldn't come. Jasmine's inner peace was the opposite of everything she had ever known. She wasn't sure what the right step was or which words would make the difference, but finally Evelyn answered slowly, Maybe, maybe people like you should be here. Jasmine responded with a faint smile. There you go. That's the right thing. Everyone should be together. Everyone should make space for each other. Evelyn's inner unrest took a small step back. In that moment, she realized that Jasmine wasn't just a stranger. She was someone who could add value to her life. The internal conflicts Evelyn had long suppressed were starting to give way to something she hadn't heard in years. It was an effort to rebuild order where there had been chaos. Evelyn, feeling she could understand Jasmine anew, wasn't ready to let her go just yet. The atmosphere by the pool had shifted. The first rays of the day combined with the warm sunlight dancing across the surface of the pool. Everything seemed so calm that the tension between Evelyn and Jasmine seemed to spread like a single drop of water. But beneath this calmness, a storm was brewing. Jasmine sat by the edge of the pool and gently closed her eyes. The peace within her mirrored Evelyn's inner battle as she observed it. Evelyn remained silent in front of Jasmine, her hands unconsciously rubbing together. She felt that something had changed, but she couldn't quite understand what it was. One thing was certain, though. Jasmine's presence was forcing her to think in a way she had never experienced before. For a moment, Evelyn felt utterly alone. She was so alone that she tried to mask the emotions she had been battling for years. But with each passing minute, Jasmine seemed to break her down more and more, slowly dismantling the decayed walls around Evelyn's heart. Evelyn realized that she had lived by clinging tightly to past beliefs. The prejudices taught by her family had instilled in her the notion of what was right, fair, and how being like us was so important. But in that moment, Jasmine was forcing Evelyn to face something very different from her past. A person only needs to discover their own inner self to choose who they are, Jasmine said, her voice calm yet profoundly meaningful. Her words caused Evelyn to sink into deep thought. Jasmine's words were no longer just part of a trivial poolside dispute. Evelyn saw in every word a wisdom that had taken root in Jasmine's life over the years. Each sentence presented a different reality to her. Jasmine wasn't just a confrontation. She was an awakening for Evelyn. Evelyn stepped back slightly, clasping her hands and rubbing them together. Her body seemed to be trying to release the unease building inside her. Jasmine's calmness had turned into a quest for balance within Evelyn. Why am I still so attached? Why do I resist so much? She asked herself. But this question was beginning to create a fracture inside Evelyn. She was starting to break the patterns of her past. Jasmine noticed the shift in Evelyn's expression. At that moment, she saw the fears, prejudices, and loneliness within Evelyn beginning to emerge. Jasmine continued speaking, her tone calm but determined. This is a place for all of us to live. This isn't a place that belongs only to people like you who think they know what's right. This should be a space where everyone is equal. And you, Evelyn, you can be part of that change. If you want to, of course. Evelyn took a deep breath. No matter how deeply Jasmine's words affected her, they were causing a fracture inside her. The fear and hostility she had once felt toward Jasmine were slowly transforming into acceptance. Jasmine's patience was offering Evelyn a kind of quietude that hurt, yet helped her see the truth. There was a change in Evelyn's eyes, but it was hard to define exactly what it was. Evelyn lowered her head for a moment, feeling a sense of being lost. Before Jasmine spoke again, she simply continued, Creating a place where everyone is equal starts with seeing yourself clearly. If you can confront the prejudices inside you, you can be the one to start the change. There was silence for a while. Evelyn lowered her eyes to the ground, trying to gather her thoughts. For a few minutes, she felt something had changed. This change wasn't due to external pressure or threats, but an internal awareness, an understanding of her own identity. Jasmine had shown her that. Evelyn's eyes, now emboldened by Jasmine's calmness, met hers. Slowly, she raised her head to look at Jasmine, and what had once been hostility had softened into understanding. Maybe you're right, Evelyn finally said, finding the words. Jasmine smiled faintly and nodded, looking into Evelyn's eyes. There was no hostility in Evelyn's gaze anymore. only a softening, a newfound understanding. Jasmine, noticing the shift in Evelyn's attitude, tilted her head slightly. "We all need to remember that we're human," she said, her voice a little softer but just as resolute. "And everyone, just like you, has the right to learn and change." The atmosphere by the pool had completely changed. As Evelyn faced Jasmine's words, she felt the old patterns inside her melt away, replaced by a more humane understanding. Jasmine's strength, her patience in speaking, and her calmness had helped Evelyn break through her prejudices. In that moment, the silence by the pool reflected how far the voices of the past had receded. Jasmine noticed the change in Evelyn's gaze and slowly stood up. "Together, we can create a better place," she said. These words felt like an epiphany for Evelyn. Jasmine wasn't just changing herself, she was forcing Evelyn into change as well. Evelyn watched Jasmine for a while longer, then slowly nodded. "I don't know, but maybe I can move forward with you like this," she said. This was a beginning. A turning point had arrived. Perhaps it was time to leave the past behind and open a new path. Jasmine's influence had begun a transformation inside Evelyn.